So let's see. And we should be live. I'm going to give it a second just for people to find it and to hop on. Welcome, welcome to those who found it. Okay, so hello. Welcome to the Escondido Public Library Virtual Author Chat Series. This series is in sponsorship with Mysterious Galaxy Bookstore. I'm your host, Jessica Buck, Adult Services Librarian, and today I am joined by author Heather Frese. I'm going to read a little bio so that everyone can know, because she's a debut author, brand new author. So Heather Frese is the author of the novel The Baddest Girl on the Planet, winner of the Lee Smith Novel Prize. Yay! Oh, it's so pretty. She has published numerous short stories, essays, and the occasional poem. Her work has appeared in Michigan Quarterly Review, the Los Angeles Review, Front Porch, the Barely South Review, Switchback, and elsewhere, earning notable mention in the Pouchard Prize Anthology and Best American Essays. Heather received her MFA from West Virginia University and has a master's degree from Ohio University. Coastal North Carolina is her longtime love and the source of inspiration, her writing deeply influenced by the wild magic and history of the Outer Banks. A native Ohioan,
She's from Ohio.
She currently writes, edits, and wrangles 3 small children in Raleigh, North Carolina. Welcome. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm so excited because as we were just talking before we went live, your book just came out, and it came out during everything that's going on, but we're still so excited about it. And I want to welcome everyone who's watching. If you have any questions for Heather, please add those to the comments. She will be choosing one lucky questionnaire person to win a signed copy of The Baddest Girl on the Planet. So please get those questions into the chat. And before we get too much into anything, Heather's going to tell us a little bit about the book and then read to us.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I'm super excited to be here. Been thinking about California all day long. I have a brother out in San Francisco, but nobody down a little further south. So this is super cool. My kids keep asking me if I was going to actually go out there to do the meeting. And I was like, no, we're just going to Zoom. But I get to Zoom with California. That's pretty fun. So The Baddest Girl on the Planet is a coming of age novel. So it is set on the Outer Banks of North Carolina. So Hatteras Island, North Carolina, which is this really isolated, beautiful stretch of land off the North Carolina coast. So the protagonist in the book is called Evie Austin. And when she's a young girl, she meets Mike Tyson, which sort of sets her on a collision course with a bad reputation, which is going to kind of dog her for the rest of her life, or not. Like, she's going to have to see if she can find a way to redefine sort of the way she sees herself. And she does that through negotiating her relationships with her family and with her best friend and with her romantic relationships in a way to sort of come of age into her own adulthood. So that's kind of Evie there. I'm going to read, the novel is, I did not do it in chronological order. So it kind of hops around in time. You get a little bit of a story, and then later you'll get more of the backstory from when she was younger. But in this case, I'm going to read a little bit of, I'm going to read chapter 2, which sounds scary, but it's really just like one little paragraph. And then I'm going to read a tiny smidge of chapter 3, which is the chapter when Evie is a child. So you'll get to know her when she's a little girl for just a couple minutes. So this is chapter 2. This is Evolution of a Bad Girl. Bad girls are not good. They're not good at all, but they are interesting. They cut off their own pigtails, pull sea oats out of the ground on purpose, make up lies. Bad girls make up lots of lies, sometimes accidentally, sometimes on purpose. When they get bigger, bad girls wear too much eyeliner, make out in baseball dugouts, let boys touch their breasts, both breasts, but mostly the left one. No one writes songs about being good. Good to the bone, big good John, good moon rising. Michael Jackson would never grab his crotch and sing, "You know I'm good." Bad girls don't know they're bad until someone tells them. They just get tired of hair sticking to the backs of their necks. They want to wash away. They want things to be interesting. But once they're told, they realize they have always been B-A-D, bad. I just might be the baddest girl you'll ever meet, the baddest girl on the planet. And then this is chapter 3, part spell, part seance, part prayer. And it takes place in 1999. My name is Evie Austin. You say it like it's 2 letters, E-V. Sometimes that's how I sign my name, E-V Austin, even though I know it's not true. My middle name is Anne, so it should be E-A Austin to be true. My whole first name is Evelyn, but I hate that name. It sounds awful, like a little old lady. When my dad dropped off me and my brother to live for the summer at our Aunt Faye's house, which isn't a house at all, but a big old camper van, he took my face in his hands and said, "Evelyn, you be good." I hate being Evelyn. I crossed my eyes at him and turned my face away. Then he and Aunt Faye started talking. My Aunt Faye said, "No, I do not want to keep them at your house. What if she comes back?" And my dad said, "She's not coming back." They're talking about my mom, who moved to Buxton for the summer for an important job. If it wasn't important, she wouldn't have moved for the whole summer. Then my dad left and went to work. I am 9 years old, and now I'm a gypsy. I live in the National Seashore Campground in Frisco, North Carolina. Frisco is a town on an island, and this island is full of danger. My island has a nickname, and it is the Graveyard of the Atlantic. This is on account of all the shipwrecks it's caused. So that's one source of danger, things that cause shipwrecks, such as shifting shoals, which I learned about from Mrs. Hammond in science class last year. There are many other dangers, including jellyfish, riptides, hurricanes, cactus, and brothers. My big brother, Nate, teases me all the time. I warn the tourists about sources of danger when I talk with them, but I leave out my brother, mostly because he's not a force of nature. It's a real big camper that we live in. You have to pull it with a truck. Aunt Faye stays in it all the time since she just sold her house and hasn't yet got a new one. She says she likes it just fine. We're going to live here while our dad's busy with tourist season, since he'll be gone too much to take care of us. Dad comes to visit us most days before he goes to work at the restaurant. My mom has not yet come to visit. She's awfully busy being on the welcoming committee for the lighthouse movers from Buffalo, New York. That's another danger, erosion. That old ocean just ate away and ate away and ate away at the beach, so much that the lighthouse, which is the tallest lighthouse in America, could topple over and wash off at any second. That's why it's getting moved. They're going to pick it right up and move it inland on a little train track is what they're going to do. So it's very important to treat the lighthouse movers nice, or else they might ruin our lighthouse. No lighthouse would mean no tourists. Tourists love lighthouses. There's not a thing you can't buy here that doesn't have a big old lighthouse on it. I've even seen dog hats with lighthouses on them. I wish I had a dog, but I wouldn't make it wear a hat, not unless it wanted to. Tourists love to buy things with lighthouses on them, but this is complicated. My dad says they are good for the economy. My dad works for a restaurant and he feeds tourists every day. He works late, which is why he can't visit us every single night. He likes it when tourists buy things. My Aunt Faye says tourists are a nuisance. Our economy did just fine for 200 years before they started showing up. Aunt Faye has a bumper sticker on her truck that says, "If it's tourist season, why can't I shoot them?" I don't tell anybody, but in secret, I like the tourists. They make summer exciting. I spy on them all the time. I get real low behind a sand dune and I watch them. But there's been nobody interesting yet at the Frisco National Seashore Campground. Just a bunch of boring old fishermen. It is only June, so maybe the interesting tourists just aren't out of school yet. And I'll stop there so I don't keep going and going and going.
Okay, we're going to change the V back. Thank you. Oh, I love people watching. So I totally relate.
It's the best thing. It's my favorite part about being in airports and restaurants.
Like, what are they doing? Who are they?
Yeah, exactly. You can hear some good stuff sometimes.
Mm-hmm. So what inspired you to write this story?
So I had written Evie before a little bit in a previous book where she was not the lead character, but she was so much fun in that book that and I knew in that story that she had married this guy who I didn't think was any good for her, and I knew that wasn't going to last. And so I wanted to write the story of how she got divorced, like how she eventually ended up leaving Stephen, her husband. And I knew it wasn't going to be something boring because Evie was too interesting of a character for that. So I knew she was going to kind of blow things up together to just like blow up the marriage by herself. And so around the same time, one of my friends told me during a lunch that we were having about this time that she met Mike Tyson. And I thought, what? You met Mike Tyson? And she said, yeah, he used to watch us do cartwheels on the front lawn. I said, what are you talking about? You're from Ohio, like Mike Tyson? She said, yeah, we used to live next door to Don King, who had a training camp in Ohio. And Mike Tyson would watch you do cartwheels. And she said, like, it was so disappointing to me when the rape charges came to light because, you know, we all thought he was this, you know, wonderful person, this big sports star, and he paid attention to the girls and like clapped his hands and stopped what he was doing. And it was this big, like, kind of traumatic event for her. And so it sort of started tying that together in my mind. Like, what if that had happened to Evie, like who didn't happen to live there, who was, maybe she was visiting Ohio, maybe this friend that she met on vacation, maybe she went back to Ohio with her and she met Mike Tyson and all this started happening and it sort of like ruined her reputation. Like, how would you deal with that if you were living on this really teensy tiny town on the Outer Banks, like on a sandbar in the middle of the ocean where there's no escaping sort of the reputation that you get? Like, that's kind of like everybody knows everything about everyone. So how would you deal with that? And so that's kind of what inspired it. And I really thought I was just going to write something short, but then Evie kind of enchanted me and I didn't want to stop writing about her. But that was the start of it.
So speaking of Evie, we have a Facebook question from Rebecca. Thank you, Rebecca. So Rebecca asked, Evie is lovable despite her mistakes. How did you keep her believable and human even when she's doing things that some see as problematic?
Yeah, Evie is not perfect. She's not. Sometimes when she embraces her bad girl reputation and she she does things that are maybe not you know, maybe not advisable. But yeah, I found when I was writing her that and what sort of kept me writing her was that her voice was just so fresh and funny, that even when she was being kind of a jerk, you could kind of relate to her in a way. And so the voice was sort of what drove me forward onto it, because like, I don't know, it's just something really interesting about her. Like, even when she was like, she does stuff that I would only ever, you know, imagine, like, which is part of her charm, I think. But I tried hard to get the reasoning behind that, like why she, you know, does the things that she does, and sort of kind of the whole part of the tension in the book, I think, was just trying to tease out like what is getting her to behave this way, and why she's acting the way she is and what she's trying to come to terms with. And so I tried to keep her relatable and funny, and I think humor goes a long way in that too. I think you can get away with a lot more with both sad things that happen and when she's not behaving very well. If like, she's relatable and funny, people are going to forgive her a lot more, I think. I hope.
Okay, I'm just going to add in a question that I just thought of while you were talking. So talking more about Evie. So she's someone that you had kind of written before, and now you're just writing her with having new experiences. Did you always have her like figured out, or did she kind of evolve and change as you wrote out her story?
Yeah, I think and I've been writing her for a long time, so I'm not sure if I remember, but I had her, she was always feisty, and she was always funny, and she was always you know, some of the other character that I was writing about, who ends up being her best friend, Charlotte, like, she was a little more predictable, a little more safe, and a little more like lyrical and poetic. But when I was writing Evie, she was always like really bright and fresh and funny. So I kind of always had those characteristics as sort of the core of her personality. But then I didn't always have like the Mike Tyson connection. I didn't always have the bad girl reputation. So those kind of things evolved a lot more as I was writing this book. But sort of the core of her personality was always there from the beginning, because I wanted Evie and Charlotte to be really different from each other, but they have this bond that carries them kind of through together. But I wanted them to be almost foils to each other, so have very, very different personalities.
Yeah, and speaking of Charlotte, we have another question from Rebecca. So she's really drawn to the relationship between Evie and Charlotte. They balance each other out and they avoid being stereotypes. Like Evie isn't always making trouble and Charlotte isn't always the reasonable one. How did you achieve that? And why do you think authors fall back on stereotypes for best female friends when they do? It's a big question.
Yeah, thank you. Those are fantastic questions. Yeah, I love writing about female friendship. Like I think it's such an important theme that I don't know, you don't read about it all that much, and it's like female friendship is so important to me in my life. Like they're some of the most important relationships in my life, and I think they deserve this sort of authenticity in literature as well. So yeah, I worked hard at that. I was sort of drew on relationships in my own life, but I also like, yeah, I didn't want them to be these stereotypes and always conforming to what you think. Like, yeah, Evie isn't, sometimes she does make the right decision, and sometimes she's humble, and sometimes like she's not always like going out of her way to be bad. And Charlotte also makes mistakes and can be a jerk, but they end up sort of being able to forgive each other and move forward with the relationship, which is something that, you know, it's something that the romantic relationships in the book don't always achieve, but she does manage to like to do that within the context of her friendship. And so I just really wanted to sort of do the best I could to represent that authentically.
Thank you, and thank you to Rebecca for your questions. Was there a particular scene or a moment that surprised you while you were writing it? Like you weren't expecting the characters to do what they were doing? It just happened?
Yeah, and without I don't know, it's probably not too much of a spoiler, but a character dies in the novel. It becomes a whole like chapter of it, but I was very surprised when that happened. When I wrote, I just wrote a sentence, so I was like, you know, it's Aunt Faye. Okay, we're just gonna go ahead and say it. I wrote, you know, my Aunt Faye had just died, and I thought, oh no, Aunt Faye died. So, but then after I discovered that, I thought, well, I have to write about that. That has to be like a whole chapter. So that was surprising to me. I was not expecting that. I didn't plan that at all. And then kind of the other thing that surprised me a little bit was sort of discovering who Evie's brother Nate, who he ends up marrying and having a family with. I didn't have that planned out at all, and just it sort of happened as I was writing it that I gave him Jenny, and her sort of traits and characteristics came to light.
So just because we're talking about things that are planned and not planned, are you a pantser or are you a plotter? Or are you like a hybrid of both?
I think I try to be a plotter, and I try some more and it doesn't work. Like I just am much more of a pantser. Like, I try, like I'm like, I told my friend this the other day. It's like, why can't I just like write out a plot and write to it and like write the book? And like it doesn't really work that way. I think sometimes the things, especially in this book, the things that were most inspirational to me were the things that weren't planned out, and the things that like it was just her voice and her like the driving force of her personality that drew me into this project in the first place. And so like it wasn't anything that I planned. It all just sort of came together. And like I said, I originally just intended to do something like a really short little project, and then it kept going and going, and I realized at some point it was a big project and I had to write towards that. So at some point I started writing towards the goal of it being a book and not just a short little piece about Evie's divorce. So I am not a plotter. I'm gonna try again. I'm gonna try again next time to plot something. I don't know if it's gonna work.
Do you have a favorite part of either the writing process or specifically like your writing process?
Yeah, I actually really like revision. Like I think drafting is exciting and it's hard and it's interesting. Also like terrifying sometimes, and you gotta sit and stare at the page and like make stuff happen and get through it. But I love to revise because like you have something there, and then what you're doing is just trying to make it the best it can be and trying to get it to do what you want it to do. And so you have that structure laid out, and you have like the goal that you're working towards, and you can just like kind of sit down and focus on getting it where it needs to be. So I like the revision part of the process. I know it's not as maybe not as like adrenaline inducing, but I like it. It's kind of my favorite part.
And are you a solitary writer? Like it has to be completely done before you want someone to look at it? Or do you like to get a lot of feedback throughout?
Yeah, no, I do feedback throughout, and I have a few writing partners that have been with me for like 15 years now, 10, 15 years. So my really good friend Jen, we draft things and send it back and forth to each other in like, you know, codependent fashion. And then I have another couple readers who will read it at some points. But I do also tend to like I revise as I go along. So I'm like super recursive. Like I don't really just blast through drafts in like one go. I tend to so I like write one sentence, you know, get stuck, go back and read the sentence, write another sentence, get stuck, go back and read it, you know. And while I'm doing that, I kind of revise as I go along. Like something doesn't sound right, you smooth it out at that point. So by the time I send it to someone, it's been revised, you know, as I've been writing it. So it takes forever. But yeah, that's just kind of how it took a while to figure out that was my process. And I'm not just, you know, there are people, like lots of people go through and knock out the draft and then go back to it. But I kind of like go back and go back and go back until it's at draft one, and then, you know, you go back and do it again.
You've written a lot of short stories and essays, and you said also poetry. Was there a big difference between kind of how you went through the process of writing those versus writing the full book, or was it just kind of longer?
Kind of. The book, it definitely was longer, and it did start out like the other book that I have drafted that, you know, that's my next project is fixing it. Like that was definitely like I was able to plot it out a little bit more, so it was definitely a big novel with a big arc, and I like just drove it forwards, and so it was a little bit different than writing a short thing. But this started out short things, and so in a way it was similar to writing short stories, but then it wasn't, because I knew at some point about maybe a quarter of the way through, I realized it was a novel. And so I was writing it to sort of intertwine together and to make sense thematically. And so the process was a little bit different in that way. And I knew I could have, I wanted it to focus on these little tiny turning points in her life that when put together, it would create like the little decisions that kind of make you who you are and sort of define your character as you're coming into your own adulthood. And so while each of the chapters is maybe smaller and more similar, I was also writing them going towards that endpoint of having like a bigger arc of Evie's evolution. So yes and no, it was similar and it was different.
And as you were writing Evie's story, were there any characters that you hadn't planned on? They just kind of made their way into the story?
There were a lot of little characters that I didn't plan on. Like I had the main ones laid out, but like in the Las Vegas chapters where there's the bodybuilder guy, his name is Vonnie. Like I didn't plan on him at all. Like he just kind of showed up. He was hilarious, and so I kept him in. Like I said, Nate's wife Jenny, I hadn't really planned on her coming in, and their baby, like Laura, their little baby, I hadn't thought about her yet. And Walter the dog, I didn't really realize he would have as big of a role as he did, but Walter snuck up on me. I knew he was there, I just didn't know he was going to be Evie's dog. So yeah, lots of little characters kind of poke their way in.
And we have another question from Rebecca. Do you think Royce is ever going to find true love?
Oh, Royce. I think about Royce sometimes. He's such a good guy. I wonder like what Royce is doing right now. And I think he will find true love. I think like he's living there and like someone who's on the island and is gonna discover Royce and he's gonna have a happy life. Like he's a good guy. Poor old Royce. He was kind. He was kind. He just wasn't the right guy for Evie, but he was a good guy. I maybe need to bring Royce back a little bit. I need to figure out what happens to him.
Did you do any like fun or interesting or unexpected like research for the book? Like try different food?
Yeah, I did lots of research. I usually end up like I wanted to be the setting to be really authentic, and so I always have a bunch of tabs open on my computer to like figure out if the store that I'm writing about is open in December, or is it closed? So little things like that, and sort of pictures up so I'm like nailing the descriptions right. So always that kind of stuff for the setting for the Outer Banks. And then I researched a ton of stuff about the lighthouse move. Like, so this lighthouse is kind of a point in the book, like a plot point and a thematic element, was the moving of the Cape Hatteras lighthouse in 1999, because it had been like on the beach. Well, eventually, like originally it was away from the beach, and then it eroded until it was like about ready to topple over into the ocean. So they pluck it up and they move it. So I did a lot of research on that, like how they did it and how they brought this team of contractors down from Buffalo. And I thought that was so interesting of how they selected this team, and how they it was chimney people who like do chimneys and stuff. So they knew, I don't know, however they decided to do that.
Oh,
So like
that makes sense.
interesting. Yeah, they're tall, like without it falling over. Like it's just amazing to me how they did that.
I've never thought about moving a lighthouse before.
Just
so like I guess like they might have to do that sometimes.
It's mind-blowing to me, like how did they do like, and like thematically, like metaphorically, it's just like it's this lighthouse, it's this beacon of stability and safety, and they're just gonna pick it up and move it, and like that just blew my mind. So I did a lot of research into that, and then I did a lot of research into Mike Tyson, because he was a surprising character in the story, and so I ended up researching sort of what he's doing now. Well, the now in the story. So a few years ago. So yeah, he's raising pigeons and stuff on rooftops in New York. And then things like lobster sex. I ended up doing a lot of research on lobsters and their sex lives. So I had a lot of fun stuff there.
I love it. Let me just check to make sure I'm not missing any questions as we're just talking about lighthouses and Mike Tyson. I just love that. I love the first line. Yeah. Oh, it's so great. So just a fun question. So what do you do when you're not writing?
I have 3 small kids right now, and they're not in school because of the pandemic. And so right now, like that is everything else that I'm doing, virtual school and chasing them around. That is pretty much it. I would love to be able to travel more and read more, and even like, listen to music and dance around the living room. But yeah, we do some of that still, but yeah, right now it's just chasing kids around. Have the littlest one is 2, so he's still really interesting. But boy, they take up a lot of time.
And what about like the types of books that you read? Like, are you writing the kind of books that you like to read, or do you like to read like science fiction or something that's completely different?
No, mostly I am writing the type of books that I like to read. Like was kind of my goal. One of my plans when I was writing it was like I wanted to write like a literary fiction beach read that was funny and like almost would be like something you would want to take to your book club and have your your friends read it, but it was also really funny, and like you would want to sit down on the beach with a beer and read it. So yeah, generally I'm drawn to a lot of literary fiction. But I like nonfiction a lot too. I like to read creative nonfiction, memoir, and I love to read poetry. I'm not that great at writing it. I try sometimes, but it's not my forte, but you know, sometimes I give it a go. But yeah, mostly for the most part, I tend to read literary fiction. Sometimes, you know, speculative fiction, and also like part of the fun thing about being a debut author right now is getting to know some of the other debuts who are coming out at this crazy time. Like we've all sort of created a Facebook group, and we kind of support each other. It's been really nice. We traded like copies of our advanced copies, so it's been really fun to read what other people are doing, and like they're all different genres. So you have, you know, sci-fi writers and speculative fiction and romance authors and literary fiction and fantasy, and it's been really fun to see what other people are doing and read sort of out of genre, like kind of stretch that a little bit. So that's been a really fun part.
Yeah, I'm happy that you wanted to include the humor, because we get so many requests from people that are planning their own book clubs, because to have books that are funny, because so many of the super popular books that are like very good, a lot of times they're a little sad,
heavy.
Sometimes very like they're very heavy.
Yeah.
So it's nice for us to be able to be like, oh yeah, here's a really good fiction that also has some fun parts in it for you to read, because it's actually very hard to find.
Yeah, that's good. And I love reading books like that too. Like I love like Bridget Jones' Diary and like books like that are just like really funny, but also well written. I wanted to do something that was literary but funny. And I think, like I said, like I think humor can be a really useful tool in getting at you know, the sadder things. Like I think you can write about sadder, heavier things if you do it with humor thrown in. And I think she uses humor to deal with life, and I think, you know, well, I do that a lot too, so kind of came naturally for that point. But yeah, it's one of my favorite things to read.
I love Bridget Jones' Diary.
Yeah, one of my favorites.
Oh God. And I love the movies too. Like they're so
cute.
Great. Laughter really is the best medicine.
Yes, it is.
So what do you hope readers take away from your book and Evie's story?
So I think I don't know, I hope that part of it, I think, is like to not judge a book by its cover, like not you know, see this girl who you think is the bad girl in town and just think that that's what she is, but you know, look a little bit deeper and kind of go into not judging people for who you think they are and what their reputation makes them out to be. So I think that's part of it. And then also like I really think what I want some people to take away from it is that like the biggest love story in this book, I think, is the female friendship between Evie and Charlotte. And I think that's kind of a big takeaway too, is that like the people who are your constants and who are your always by your side and always have your back. So you like your family and your best friend and the people who are just always there for you. Like those are the sort of the big love story that I wanted to be part of the takeaway.
Oh, I love that. And you mentioned what the next book, how you're in the process of like revising. So what is the next one?
Yeah, so the next one is actually an old one that I drafted a long time ago, but then it's a sort of a grief novel that is also sometimes funny, I hope. It's definitely a different vibe than this one, but yeah, so that one is from Charlotte's point of view, and I wrote that first, and then like it was, like I said, it was a grief novel, and it was a little bit of an autobiographical grief novel, and so I had to put it in a drawer for a while and move away from the autobiographical elements of it. So now I think I'm finally ready to look at it like just as a fiction project and think of how I can, you know, make it the best it can be for what it is. So yeah, Evie's in that one, and I hope I can this summer, my big plan is to get into it and kind of rip it. And I don't want to rip it to shreds, but maybe like fluff it up a whole lot in the middle. It needs a lot of help. But like I do like the rising part, and so it does. Yeah, it needs it falls a little flat in the middle. I'm trying to make it have a better arc, but I think it's got good bones. I think I can fix it up and get it ready to go. And then I actually started something new the other day too, which is yeah, it was exciting because like it's been really hard to write. Like I've had 3 kids in a kind of short period of time, and we've been moving a lot. It's been hard for me to draft things, so it was kind of exciting to have something new pop up that I felt like had a little bit of air to it and a little bit of driving force. So yeah, I think there's one more Outer Banks book in me after this one. So
I was about to ask if you're going to be staying in this world or if you're going to create a new one. Oh, it's exciting.
Yeah, I have a trio in me. I think and then I'll maybe move on to a different setting, but there's just so much there that is so interesting about that setting that like I just love to write about it. And so yeah, I want to do and what, this is me trying to be a plotter, and so it's probably not going to work out, so don't quote me on this, but I want to do like a multiple first person narration, so like maybe 4 main characters each telling the story as it moves along. So we'll see if that actually comes to pass or if I get started and something else happens, but that's my plan anyway. So hopefully something will come of that.
Oh no, looking forward to it.
Yeah.
So other than the books, are there any other fun projects that you're working on?
Yeah, I'm trying to do a little essay right now. I'm trying to write an essay about springtime and kids. I'm trying to do I actually have a few little essays that are kind of brewing in my head, like that kind of weren't expected, but that I'm working on. Like I have an essay about Lunchables that I'm working on, about postpartum depression, and so I'm trying to find them homes right now. So I'm trying to send those out into the world. And then I did just have a poem get published. I hadn't written it terribly recently, but it just came out in a magazine called Change 7. So I'm proud of that one. This is an actual poem.
Oh, that's exciting. That's kind of perfect because it's National Poetry Month.
National Poetry Month, and people, readers who have read The Baddest Girl on the Planet will recognize the setting in the poem because it's set on the beach in the Dominican Republic, which is where one of the chapters in Baddest Girl takes place. So people will recognize that a little bit, which I think is fun. So that was timed well, unintentionally. So yeah, lots of stuff kind of in the works, but yeah, I really ready to dig into a couple of big projects this summer if I can find a babysitter who's been vaccinated.
I'm putting the word out now.
Yeah.
Let me just check to see if we have any more questions. We've got a lot of good questions.
Yeah, you guys are so smart.
We did. Let's see. Oh, so was there anything that kind of got you through the COVID quarantine, stuck at home, can't go out, wear masks? Like, was there like a show or a book, or was it like revising everything? Like, what was the thing that like helped you get through it?
To be perfectly honest, it was Lexapro. Lexapro. I hit a breaking point the last spring, like it was bad. So that was part of it. I was like honestly like reaching out for help when I needed help. Like that was what it is. But otherwise, yeah, I was Where'd You Go, Bernadette? Like that was a book that I read.
Oh my gosh.
Love that book. Like that was like when I had to think about books where like I wanted my book to fit in, like I was like, oh, that's where it is. And Eleanor Oliphant is Completely Fine. Like those are 2 books that I read.
Oh yeah.
So good. Like I love them so much. Like those were 2 that sort of were touchstones for me. And gosh, yeah, it's been such a crazy time period because my edits, like my revisions for the book came in just as things were shutting down completely last year. Like there were no babysitters. Like it was like we were all home, we were all miserable, and it was bad. Like it was hard. Because I had planned it all out. Like I'd like it like we're relatively new in town. We've been here a while now. Like I have a really good support network, but I was like, I'm gonna tap into my support network and I'm gonna get the time, and I'm really gonna focus on these edits and these revisions and get everything the way I want it to. And then like it just all crashed and burned around my head. So yeah, it was something else. It was a time. We made it work and got through it. But yeah, those books were big helps for me. What shows I was watching that got me through? Schitt's Creek. I watched Schitt's Creek.
Oh my gosh.
Something to make you laugh.
I finally started watching that because I kept seeing so many like memes and gifs online. I'm like, what is this show?
Right? It's so funny.
Like, it's great. Like there's literally like a quote for any situation from one show.
From one show. They're the best. Like they're the best characters. I love them. Never got into the Tiger King. I tried to watch that Tiger King that happened in the beginning of everything. I couldn't really get into it.
No, yeah, and it got big.
Yeah, it blew up. It was nuts.
Yeah, that's the one of the positive things about everything that happened was that so many more people were like sharing and like watching things at the same time. And also like with all the virtual programs.
Yeah,
you know, like a lot of debut authors were able to like go places they couldn't have gone before.
Yeah, exactly. That actually has been like super helpful because I found it like just being like at home with little kids, I found it really hard to get to events. So I felt sort of disconnected from the literary community while I was in this period. So this has been like, that's been one happy side effect. Like I can, put a Zoom on and cook dinner and feel like I'm participating, and being connected to that community. Like that's been like really something really nice. But kind of hope that'll continue actually. Like it's been pretty cool.
Oh yeah, me too.
Yeah,
definitely. And it's more accessible for people that can't travel.
Yeah, definitely.
Really
yeah, it's definitely helpful with accessibility. I think, maybe a couple good things will come of it. We got outside a lot. Like my son learned to ride his bike. Like that was nice too. Like spent more unstructured time because we were busy. We were busy kids. But, found like it was like I learned to look for the opposite of what I usually would used to look for. Like I would used to look for like places where they could go and play with kids, like on a playground and like where you could find other kids to play with. And so I had to find new places in my city where I did not see other kids. So I found lots of cool spots in the woods and waterfalls and stuff like that. Yeah, it's been kind of fun.
Well, it's going to be still good memories,
Yeah, hopefully.
Okay, I'm just checking to see if there's any last minute burning questions. I don't see anything. So since we're getting towards the last few minutes, I'm going to ask the closing question. This is a question that I always ask at the end, and I love hearing everyone's response. What is your favorite library memory?
I love libraries. Like libraries are my happy place. Like I have so much fondness in my heart for libraries. So I have a few, but
that's okay.
I had to go it down. Like I remember when I was a little girl, like the Guernsey County Public Library at home in Cambridge, Ohio. I have really good memories of being there with my mom and dad and like picking out books. And I like really clearly remember learning about decibels from my dad, picking out a library book and teaching me all the sciencey stuff. So that's one of my favorite memories. And then my other one would be taking my kids to story time here when I moved to Raleigh. It was just this special time where you kind of like stop everything that you're doing and you and your baby just like pay attention and play together and like you lift them up into the air with their little legs and like, sing the songs. And it's just always been this sort of really special time. Even like I could have it one-on-one with them, like well, not the middle one, like she got shafted, but like the first one I got one-on-one with him, and then when the other two were in school, I could take the baby to his little own story time. So poor Hannah. But yeah, it was just always a super special time. Like I love libraries, and it's always still like love to take the kids there and let them pick out their books and sit and read. But yeah, so many special memories. Like libraries are so special to my heart.
Oh, that makes me so happy to hear. And I'm so happy that you spent some time today to chat with me about your book. This was just wonderful. I'm so happy that it worked out.
Yeah, me too. And thank you so much for having me. This was so much fun. And I love being able to come and talk to you guys. And Zoom to California. Super cool.
Yeah. And I want everyone watching now, or if you're watching later, to know that you can purchase Heather's book, The Baddest Girl on the Planet from Mysterious Galaxy, or any other local bookstore, but that's the one that we like. And you can check it out from the library, probably from your local library too. We have it available digitally right now, and our physical copy is on its way. If your library doesn't have it, tell them to buy it, and then they will have it, and then you can check it out.
Yeah,
thank you to
something you could
do.
It's great.
Yes. Yes. Tell them we want this book. And thank you to everyone who's watching, and again for Heather for being with us today. Check out our Facebook and website for more free online programs. Our next chat will be April 10th. It's the children's author, Lindsay Rowe Parker. It's going to be a little story time and then a little bit of Q&A. I just pasted our very short 3-question program survey into the chat. Please fill that out when you get a chance. Just let us know if you enjoyed this program and if you want to see more. And thank you so much, Heather. Thank you to everyone, and we hope you have a wonderful night.
Thank you.